Hello and welcome to GeoBytes, your daily roundup of news from geospatial industry. I'm your host Bhanu. For the next 15 minutes, I will bring you the news from the top developments across projects, products, policies and business. The geospatial community is expressing profound grief as it pays homage to former President of India, a visionary, reputed space and nuclear scientist, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Dr. Kalam, who would have turned 84 this year, passed away on Monday evening after suffering a massive cardiac arrest. Dr. Kalam was addressing students at a college in India when he suddenly collapsed on the dais. He was declared dead after 2 hours. Dr. Kalam contributed significantly to the field of ballistic missile and space rocket technology in India. He became the 11th president of the country and served the state between 2002 and 2007. Dr. Kalam believed that geospatial technology will be a game changer, particularly in the development of rural and remote places of the world. We at Geospatial Media feel honored that Dr. Kalam delivered the keynote address at Geospatial World Forum 2012 in Amsterdam. During his address at the conference, he laid down his vision for the effective use of geospatial technology for the sustainable development of the 3 billion people living in the rural areas of the world. Dr. Kalam proposed the formation of a World Geospatial Knowledge Platform, which would be a joint venture to develop the products and systems of geospatial technology using the core competencies of individual nations. Indian Space Research Organization ISRO Chairman A.S. Kiran Kumar expressed his condolences over the sudden demise of Dr. Kalam.
Dr. Kalam was one of the persons who was responsible for the development of the rocket technology while he was the project director of SLV, and in his initial years he contributed a great deal to the development of rocket technology in the country. And we remember him as a person who is extremely knowledgeable and then a person of great qualities, and he was very amicable and he used to interact with all the people with great simplicity, and it's a great loss to the country. My own interaction with him has been in the recent past, not in the early years, and I remember when he was here in the Raj Bhavan just last month, I had gone and met him there. We discussed some of the things about the Indian Institute of Space Technology, where he was the chancellor, and we were trying to fix up the next convocation date, and also while I described to him the recent performance of the cryo engine, he was extremely happy, and then he congratulated all the ISRO teams for the excellent work that was happening in development of this cryo engine technology.
Geospatial World Managing Editor Professor Arup Das Gupta also expressed shock and grief over Dr. Kalam's death. Professor Das Gupta, who served ISRO as Deputy Director of Satellite Communications and Information Technology, had this to say.
It is sad that I have to speak today about Sri APJ Abdul Kalam in the past tense. His passing away is a big blow to both the scientific community as well as to the youth of India. I did not meet Professor Kalam till many years after my entry into ISRO. Of course, I knew him as the architect of the satellite launch vehicle program of ISRO, and I remember the grace with which he accepted the first failure, as well as the humility with which he accepted the first success as well. He then left ISRO to join the DRDO, and as a young engineer I was very surprised, because how could a person leave an organization where he was at his peak? But then the integrated guided missile development program of DRDO got underway, and there was success after success, and I realized that that move had helped Professor Kalam to really reach the acme of his performance of his career.
Meanwhile, ISRO's former chairman K. Radhakrishnan says that Dr. Kalam had a single-minded approach in leading projects, and his taking over of the satellite launch vehicle program led to its spectacular success in 1980. It was the turning point in India's space program. India has declared a 7-day national mourning. Moving on, Hexagon Geospatial has announced Smart M apps or Smart Maps, which can be best described as lightweight applications designed to combine data, workflows, and analytics. The company is positive that these creatively designed maps can solve distinct business problems. According to Mladen Stojic, president of Hexagon Geospatial, the future lies in the ability to build and deploy highly customizable apps that provide true operational and business value. He adds that Hexagon Smart Maps is their way of providing a better experience. The company also announced contest sharing programs with Airbus Defence and Space and Black Sky Global. The business partner network will help to integrate current satellite imagery and Earth observation data with smart maps, or rather Smart M apps. The official launch will come later this year. From the field of precision agriculture, we are hearing that Trimble and AGCO, AGCO, have joined hands to enable growers to access their AGCO machine and task data within the Trimble Connected Farm solution. Trimble's Agriculture Division Vice President Joe Deniston tells that AGCO customers can monitor their farm operations, including fleet data, rainfall and weather information, commodity codes and irrigation monitoring using Connected Farm. This would lead to improved decision making from the office to the field. Farmers in North America will start benefiting from this collaboration from September. The service will reach Europe, Africa and Middle East by end of this year. Moving on, the United States Department of Agriculture has announced $349 million in funding for rural electric infrastructure projects. Out of this, $17 million have been set aside exclusively for smart grid technology. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack is positive that upgrading the electric grid will not only improve reliability and better manage costs, but it will also bring jobs and increased economic opportunities. And why not? Smart grid increases the reliability of electric power by helping utilities better manage the grid. This includes metering, substation automation, computer applications, two-way communications, and GIS. The funding is being provided through USDA Rural Development's Electric Program. Mergers and acquisitions continue to be the flavor of the season for the geospatial industry. This time, a Canadian drone manufacturer, Dragonfly, has been acquired by California-based tech firm Trace Live Networks. Dragonfly's drones are used for many commercial purposes, including law enforcement, search and rescue, agricultural mapping, industrial inspection, and aerial photography. Meanwhile, Trace is known for developing an intelligent camera that can follow its subject almost anywhere and live stream the captured footage. Dragonfly founder and president Zenon Dragan is excited that now more organizations will benefit from the company's aerial mapping data. The Open Geospatial Consortium (OGC) announced Common Database Specification as an OGC best practice. This best practice specifies an open format for simulation applications. It also specifies encoding for the storage, access, and modification of a representation of the natural and built environment. A database that follows this best practice can be easily used by existing client devices through a data publishing process. This process is performed on demand in real time. We will now slip into a short break, but when we return, we will have a look at what's brewing in the rest of the world.
Geospatial industry is evolving with time, adding newer dimensions, converging with other technologies, and expanding across verticals. Feel the pulse of its growth story. Catch the technology innovators, system integrators, business drivers, and policymakers share their knowledge, experiences, and ideas at GeoBuiz Leaders Summit. Join the knowledge pool.
Welcome back. China is steadily working towards building a homegrown satellite navigation system which would rival the United States global positioning system. The country has successfully added 2 more satellites in the Beidou Navigation Satellite System or BDS constellation this month. This brings the total number of satellites in China's homegrown positioning system up to 19. It's interesting to note that even though the first Beidou satellite was not put into orbit until 2000, by 2012, BDS was already providing positioning, navigation, timing, and communication services to China and many other APAC countries. China plans to have complete global coverage by 2020 by setting up a constellation of 35 satellites. The country aims to challenge the GPS market share by offering much cheaper services. And while discussing navigation satellites, let us also tell you that Europe's 9th and 10th Galileo satellites have reached French Guiana ahead of their joint launch in September. The launch will happen on a Soyuz rocket. It will see Europe's own SatNav constellation reach double figure. Currently, 2 more satellites are being tested at the European Space Agency's Technical Center in the Netherlands, and 14 more are being built in Germany. Apple announced that its fleet of vehicles will begin surveying multiple countries in August. The vehicles will collect street-level mapping data from France and Sweden by driving through metropolitan region in Sweden and a few areas in Paris. Closer home, Apple will begin surveying Tennessee later in August. This would bring up the total number of US states that Apple has driven through to 30. Earlier this month, Apple began collecting mapping data in 13 more US states, including Colorado, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, and Wyoming. Belgo Control, a Belgian company in charge of the safety of air traffic in the civil airspace, will soon start following satellite data instead of ground installation data for airport landings. The new procedure will get in place at Antwerp Airport from December this year. Planes traditionally follow signals from ground radio beacons. However, the use of satellite data in a required navigation performance approach was tested early this month, and it was proved successful. One of the advantages of the satellite data technique is that planes can use landing strips not equipped with instrument landing system installation when visibility is reduced. The Indian Space Research Organization ISRO is hoping that its BIG offer would be lapped up by the market and benefit the public. What is BIG, you may ask? BIG or BIG is an acronym for the web-based GIS tool called Bhuvan, Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System or IRNSS, and Gagan, the GPS-aided geo-augmented navigation. We told you earlier this month that Gagan has begun operations to provide accurate navigation services over the Bay of Bengal, Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean, Middle East and African regions. Meanwhile, IRNSS is providing independent satellite-based navigation services over the Indian region, and Bhuvan is offering 2D and 3D imagery of the Indian locations. A new report by New Zealand's Lincoln University has revealed that producing detailed soil maps of the country's farms can help in improving food production and reduce nitrate leaching. The report is based on a soil survey in which a detailed spatial analysis of the soils was done to produce a comprehensive map. Landcare Research's SMAP National Soil Service team was brought on board to provide fact sheets for each soil. Each sample was assessed in terms of nitrate leaching vulnerability, drainage ability, and water holding capacity. It was found that soil mapping could allow farmers to carry out practices that are specific to their property and relevant to local soil characteristics. The report also points out that variable irrigation is better for farmers who want to increase crop production while minimizing costs. That's all we have for you in GeoBytes today. Find us on www.geobiz.com and follow GeoBuiz on Twitter. We will be back shortly with GeoBuiz exclusive. Stay tuned.
Once again, Trimble is leading the way in positioning technology with the new Trimble R8S GNSS receiver. An entirely new way to look at receiver possibilities. Simply choose the configuration and features you require today. Then, add features as you need them tomorrow. It's the ultimate in scalability. With this innovative receiver, you tailor your system to your job, to the way you work. Choose the level of configuration that suits your needs. As your requirements change, the Trimble R8S can adapt. You simply add functionality whenever you want it. Each Trimble R8S comes standard with integrated Maxwell 6 chips, Trimble 360 tracking technology, and more. All to keep you productive and expand the reach of your GNSS system. Plus, it offers our exclusive web UI for remote monitoring and the new Trimble DL Android app for GNSS data logging. And the Trimble R8S maximizes productivity by easily integrating with the Trimble S-Series total stations and our innovative V10 imaging rover. For ultimate field efficiency, combine the Trimble R8S receiver with a Trimble controller and the intuitive Trimble Access Field software. Trust Trimble Business Center to help you edit, process, and adjust your data. It's the kind of solution you have come to expect from Trimble. We've been setting the standard in positioning technology for more than 30 years. See how we're raising the bar again with the Trimble R8S GNSS receiver.
Can you tell us a little bit about Geo and what it is that you do in the organization?
We have a lot of obviously formidable competitors in the mapping space.
But saying human geo, I was like perplexed. Why the name human to the geospatial angle?
If we think about land, I mean, land is a key core to prosperity.
Thank you, Hugo, for speaking with GeoBuiz and Geospatial World. I think that's exactly a year that Hexagon has announced the Hexagon Imagery Program.
Customers are no longer just buying data, they're no longer just buying software. They want answers. Many of the customers we're seeing pick up the need for geospatial technologies.
Hello, welcome to GeoBuiz, the online video channel from Geospatial Media and Communications. We have in our studios a special guest today, Mladen Stojic, President Hexagon Geospatial. Mladen, welcome to GeoBuiz.
Thank you, it's good to be here.
As you understand and everyone understands, change is something that is pretty daunting and intimidating often.
Yeah.
So how is Hexagon, because Hexagon is all about smart change, so how is Hexagon making it easy for users to make this transition with change?
Okay, that's a good question. So before I directly answer that, I think some context on the fearless experience of change and what are we changing? Because I think without that context, it's hard to answer the question. We recognize that as the industry is changing, and what does that mean? The industry is no longer just, customers are no longer just buying data, they're no longer just buying software. They want answers. Many of the customers we're seeing pick up the need for geospatial technologies are not traditional users. They want to know the amount of green space that's changed in an urban environment. They want to know answers to very, very big questions and very big problems. And today, most recently, to solve problems, they'd have to buy data, they'd have to buy software, they'd have to pay someone to put it all together. And it's hard and it costs a lot of money. We want to change how the industry works and its underlying economy, and with that there's a lot of fear. We as a business sell software, right? But we recognize that in the future we won't be selling software. We'll be selling subscriptions to a service that delivers an answer or an information capability that someone subscribes to, that they plug into, connect to, and ultimately get answers to pressing questions that they have. Just like data, customers won't just buy data anymore because data in and of itself is of limited value unless it's connected to software that solves a particular problem. So we expect there to be a lot of change in the industry, and our customers are forcing us to go down this road of change. And with change, there's a lot of fear. Fear typically triggers a psychological response, which is many times paralysis. People don't want to move, they're stuck. And we're telling our customers, our partners in our market, come with us. Because we are a partner-focused company, we're asking our partners, okay, you're used to selling products a certain way. We're doing things in the technology stack that will support new business models. Come with us, change with us. We're asking the industry partners, data providers, change with us, come with us. And to overcome the fears of change, going back to your original question, we're extending many things to our customers and our partners. We're unconventional partners. We're giving them access to things that they've never had access to, such as source code, such as what's required, partnerships, what's required to be successful in business models that are different, revenue sharing models that are different. Because if we don't extend the olive branch and extend a window to change, nothing will change. So we have to change. And it's about when I took over the business, and I said to the staff, we have to change, me, Mladen, the team, the organization, we have to think differently, because if we don't think differently, how can we expect our customers, our partners, and the market to change? So the change started with us.
Yes.
Now we're extending that change to the community, our partner network, our customers, and it does require overcoming fears. And we're changing business models so that partners trust us. We're changing how our partners get access to technology, in some cases giving a lot of source code to partners who we trust, who trust us, who have a commitment with us. So it's really, there's a lot of change in the air, but it's to change that the way customers work, because they're asking us to change. So we're doing a lot of things with revenue models, technology models, partnership models, and hopefully our goal once again is to change the geospatial economy and the industry, because I don't think status quo is an option anymore.
Yes, status quo is not an option anymore, definitely. And on this count, when you said about change, I would like to quote Mahatma Gandhi, who said, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to see that Hexagon has that change, that change in its own thinking,
Right.
its own ways of doing
Absolutely.
business, and its own way, how it sees its customers'
Absolutely.
needs. And the customer needs starts with data, I guess.
Yeah.
So when today the data scenario is such that we are seeing a flood of data, and data by itself, as you have said, is not of much value. Is not of much value.
Correct.
So how is it Hexagon Geospatial trying to make value for its users from data?
Okay, so that's a good question. It starts with an understanding that we both agree data has a lot of potential, but on the surface is of limited value until you apply something to it. And if you don't mind, I'll use a cooking example. If I want to cook an Italian meal, an onion is good, a tomato is good, pasta is good, and all the ingredient, chicken is good, but individually they're all good, but of limited value. I'm not just going to eat an onion.
Yes.
But when I combine those ingredients and prepare a meal and serve that meal, it's very appetizing and very tasteful to many users who would pay for that meal. The same thing with data. Data is good when you combine multiple sources of data, which we enable with our platform. We are not a single source framework or platform. We have the ability to ingest multi-source content, everything from the Hexagon imagery program through to multi-sensor or multispectral imagery, through to UAV data, through to terrestrial GPS, TPS, mobile mapping data, to social feeds, to dynamic sensor feeds, traffic lights, information, traffic sensors, weather sensors. For us, data is the fuel or the wind that our engines transform into something that's usable. And once again, when you combine all of these ingredients together with software, which we do, really having the world's most broadest geospatial platform, supporting GIS data, remote sensing data, photogrammetry data, and a whole host of data types, we have the ability to cook solutions. And that's what really gives us an advantage and gives our customers an advantage to really build solutions that use that data combined with software to deliver a very specific solution and application.
Okay, would you like to cite one example of how Hexagon Geospatial is creating solutions for its customers?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a couple examples. Probably the one I'll start with is in the UK, and I talked about it in the Hexagon Live keynote, working with our partners Sterling Geo and an organization called Catapult UK and the Satellite Application Center. There's this need, and I'll explain the problem first. There was a big storm event and a big flooding event that occurred in the city of Hull in the UK. And what happened was that area, there was a lot of development, a lot of green space being converted, paving over green space. And when you have a very big storm event, a 50-year, 100-year storm event, very rapidly, the infrastructure, the sewers, the pipes, they can't handle all the water. It caused a lot of damage to property, to personal property, infrastructure, because there was flooding in the city of Hull. That instigated an effort to basically pass policies that will limit the extent of green space change, trees, vegetation, grass, parks, and not allow rezoning of up to a certain level. So the problem was, we got to be more careful when we change zoning from green to urban or gray space. And we basically built an application called, an information service application called a green space analyzer. Using multi-source content from multiple time periods, we're able to synthesize these satellite images, aerial images, elevation data sets, extract pertinent information from those data sets, land cover, land use information, stitch that all together in an analytical recipe, and then communicate the results, not as a GIS or as a remote sensing layer like a land change layer or a green space layer, as a set of numbers, as a dashboard, a ratio of green to gray, 1.2 to 1, 2 to 1 over time. So they can look at these reports and look at trends to understand what was, to better have a grasp of what is, but more importantly, to pass policies of what can be and what will be, okay? So this concept of ingesting multiple ingredients, including data types, with multiple types of data, adding business intelligence to that, business analytics to that, and it's not about the map anymore. It's about being able to deliver the city, let's say Milton Keynes, in this case, particular case, reports on the amount of green space change. And what's beautiful now is with all these new beautiful microsatellites flying, we have daily revisits over these vast geographies. So now I have the ability, in the past I'd have to order the data set, buy the data set, wait 3 months, and here's my report.
True.
Now we have the ability to sense the Earth very rapidly, very quickly, and update these analytics, these numbers, this very valuable information, and then get it into the hands of the people as a text message, as a PowerPoint, as a PDF, as a Word document, not as a map. I think the map, of course, is the fabric, but as the information that's pertinent to a given problem. And it's a beautiful example of how things are changing. And the customer, in this case, is not interested in buying a software package or buying data. They want to subscribe on a quarterly basis to a service that gives them a report or some indication, some dashboard on what's changed, how much has changed, and giving them some insight or answers into that complex problem.
That's a good way of going forward. Customers want to see what has changed and how much has it changed, and in bringing it in terms of operational efficiencies or productivity gains, they want to really measure the changes. So our Hexagon's geospatial solutions able to provide measurable ROI, returns on the investment to the customers.
Absolutely. I mean, our partners are the ones, so just a position, we of course work with partners whose job it is to establish an ROI on a given solution. That's typically reflected in a response to RFPs or tenders that clearly establish there's a need to solve a problem. But the ROI in this particular case that I referenced was being able, and it's hard to tell what the ROI on this one will be because you're passing policy that will influence rezoning or redesignation of zoning, which will minimize the impact of floods. So in this particular ROI, we want to minimize the damage to infrastructure and personal property by minimizing the likelihood or the probability of floods through a 10-year storm event, a 50-year storm event, or perhaps even a 100-year storm event. So our mission is to really protect lives, property, infrastructure. That's the ROI. I mean, that's really why we're in business, because we recognize that the Earth's geography is changing at an incredible pace. And to make sense of this dynamically changing environment, we need to be able to quickly get answers to information that's pertinent and relevant and can be delivered in a very easy to use way, not as a software product, not as a data set, but as a service, as an information subscription, or more importantly, an information.
One of the trends I observe in this geospatial industry traditionally has been that the value proposition and the benefit out of the geospatial technology has not been clearly delivered to the user for a long time. But definitely this kind of an approach, this kind of taking things forward more in a solution-centric manner for the customers will really increase the value of geospatial technology. But essentially it depends upon the vendor and the user connect, and how well the vendor can really communicate, coordinate, and deliver the value of geospatial technology, create awareness, and make them learn and also implement in their organizations.
Absolutely.
So how do you see this progression over the vendor-user connect really improving for the betterment of, rather I would say for the benefit of users and for the real significance of this technology reaches the users?
Yeah, so I think it certainly requires a lot of outreach, right?
Exactly.
And the outreach is multi-level. I think I'll start at the beginning and then sort of work up. It starts at education. I think many users, we have to educate our students, those entering college, those in college, about the powerful capabilities that are available through the use of geospatial technologies, because we have these fresh minds,
yes,
these very creative individuals who are now leaving colleges and universities who have the ability to now to apply geospatial technologies to many, many different applications and industries. So there's certainly a level of outreach that has to happen at the educational level. Once you move beyond the educational level, then you look at nonprofits, think tanks, research institutes, those organizations that don't necessarily think about today, but think about the future, think about what are the pressing issues of the future and how do we start addressing those today, so we take a proactive stance as opposed to a reactive stance when it comes to solving what we anticipate to be a problem. So that type of outreach, and Hexagon certainly having relationships such as, like we do with Catapult UK, it's an organization, a research organization that's thinking 20, 30 years ahead and anticipating problems and establishing a relationship with some of their users and their customers, and working together with Hexagon. We're working together not to solve just a problem today, but to make sure that we are in a position to solve issues and problems as they become apparent in the future. And then just looking at other industry associations and outreach through even coming from GeoInt, GeoInt, USGIF group, the OGC groups, the ISPRS groups, the different standards groups and committees. I think the outreach has to happen at multiple levels, and certainly each one of those avenues allow us to connect to users in a different way, so that together we can formulate strategies to solve problems in the future.
Okay, I'll go again back to the initiatives at Hexagon Geospatial. I think it's exactly a year that Hexagon has announced the Hexagon Imagery Program, and you have started partnering with Airbus Defense. You also have partnerships with Skybox Imaging, Black Sky and Global, and several other companies, including Esri for partnerships with content and also the platform for content.
Yes.
So why is Hexagon pretty keen on becoming a data provider as well, because it's traditionally been a software and a solution provider?
Yeah, I think using analogies, I'll use the wind turbine or the windmill concept, which of course we as Hexagon Geospatial use quite a lot. To generate electrical power, we recognize with a windmill that you have a raw kinetic energy source in wind. And if you could transform wind into that raw kinetic power, electricity, it's much more useful to end users, because you can light the room, you can use your phone, you can power your cities, governments, etc. Translate that to the geospatial industry, the wind is data. So we can build the best software, we can build the best solutions, but if there's no data or content flowing through those systems to turn that content into information, it's of limited value. So you can't have one without the other, and for that reason we recognized not only initiating our own imagery program, such as is the case with the Hexagon Imagery Program, but also extending partnerships to other types of data providers, content providers, such as the ones you've mentioned, Black Sky recently and Airbus, etc. We have the ability to pull multiple different types of data into a solution: airborne, satellite, microsatellite, UAV, terrestrial, mobile mapping. They're all ingredients. And certainly we will collect some of our own data and use some of our own data, but also recognize there's a lot of data out there that covers different parts of the world, because we are an organization that's global. We have to be able to tap into all available data sources so that our partners can build solutions that allow them to quickly get answers to pressing problems. And the key to that will be content partnerships, but also having the content available in our platforms so that we can in fact get value out of the data. And really those partnerships are important because it's the wind, it's the raw energy source to a lot of the issues that can be solved. And when you apply software to data, you get something new. You get a derivative capability that's even more beneficial and more valuable.
Okay, so you're mixing up with your data, that is incoming data, along with the software, and creating the solutions for the users. In last year, I see that Hexagon Geospatial has reorganized its existing products and created the power portfolio. What is the rationale in reorganizing the existing products, and how are the users actually benefiting with this reorganization?
Okay, so I mean, if you look at the history of the organization, Hexagon Geospatial came together as a collection of product lines that have been acquired by Hexagon and Leica Geosystems over the course of the last 15 years. GIS products, remote sensing products, photogrammetry products. It was very apparent early on as we started signing on new business partners. When I would show them my PowerPoint slides and talk about what I have, I'd say I have Rodos Imagine, I have GeoMedia, I have Image Station, I have ER Mapper, I have Apollo, I have Web Map, I have Portal, I have Mobile Map. It's too much. It's not that their technology is too much. It's just I can't remember everything. It doesn't make sense. So we recognized that, but then we also looked at how do we sell this? How do we get this across to the market in a very easy to use way? And we recognize we have to rationalize our offering so it makes sense. And going back to the windmill concept of 3 windmills, energy, data being the fuel, but we start with the ability to produce data. That's the producer suite, largely desktop products that cover GIS, remote sensing, and photogrammetry. And we sell it like that. We sell annual subscriptions to the producer suite, either as a perpetual license or online. So it's a lot easier to sell and use. And they look the same. They have a ribbon interface. So the producer suite, you can put a box around saying, this is for customers, professional customers who want to produce geospatial information or content, very traditional market, user base, etc. And then we said, okay, once these same organizations produce data, there's a lot of data out there. What do they do with it? Well, they got to get it into people's hands. How? They have to provide the data. So that's where we took Apollo and some of our compression and delivery capabilities and said, well, these products produce, take the results from the producer suite and provide it. So that's the provider suite. We can provide data as a service to other applications. And then it's not good enough just providing data, you have to use the data for a solution. And we recognize, well, we have a lot of platform technologies, web platform, mobile platform. That's the platform suite, the power to build solutions that use the data that's provided to them and then deliver custom value add solutions. So we ended up with the producer suite, to produce data, the provider suite to provide data, and the platform suite to build solutions that use the data. So that was the rationale, and honestly, it's been very well received, and it just makes sense for our partners, for our customers, and we also sell them that way. So it's a lot easier on the organization and for our market and our customers, and it's really been a very successful and win-win strategy.
I think Hexagon Geospatial is making it very, very easy for the customers to use this complicated technology. And you talked about map is not an end in itself, but map definitely is the building block for solutions. So how do you see and where do you see Hexagon playing a key role in evolving this map and the basic building blocks of solutions to be more intuitive, to be more user-friendly going forward from now?
I've referenced this during the keynote at Hexagon Live. And we talk a lot about what is the, and I know there have been some articles on this topic, what is the map of the future?
Map of the future.
And I made a pretty bold statement at the conference, and I've said it other times too. I don't think the map of the future is a map. Because a map, if we look at the several last generations of mapping and the associated economy of those times, a map is, regardless of whether it's a paper map or even a digital map, a map is static. It reflects a picture of what was, okay, very philosophical, of what was. I believe the map of the future, it has to be dynamic, it has to be fresh, it has to be alive. It has to communicate with me, not me communicate with them. I shouldn't have to pick it up and then infer something, a relationship from that map. The map of the future has to be something that makes sense, something that communicates with me. And I use the word alive. It has to be alive. It has to be connected. It has to be portable. It has to travel with me, right? And I don't think it's a map, because a map constrains us to a box, and the world's not a box. The world is much more than a map box, or the world is much more than a GIS. The world is much more than, the world is alive. And I think human beings in our futile efforts apply and have made great advancements in technology to map the world, but our maps are so old and are so difficult to maintain and costly to maintain. And I'm not saying we want to be the ones to solve this problem, but I love this industry, and I put challenges to ourselves, my organization, our organization, and the industry, to build the map of the future. And I think the map of the future is something that's alive. It talks to me. It's a service, and I don't even know if the word service gives it justice, but that's the only word I could think of right now. It's something that, it's a subscription, it's something that gives me information. And it may not even be a map. It may be a series of ratios or numbers. Once again, this green space example. It may be something that tells me what the financial potential of a forest stand is. It may be something that says, you got to go to this building because there's a fire here, and there's 4 children trapped in this room, and they're on the 4th floor, and I don't need a map, right? But it's location-based intelligence, and I have to be able to get it dynamically, and the time is now, because once again, and Hexagon's very well positioned because we have the sensors needed to collect the data, content partnerships with microsatellites and all these new sources to feed these engines. We have the ingredients to make the map of the future. And it's not a map. It's because a map is a box. It's much more than that. It's an information service that gives us answers. And part of what we're now working on is to define the map of the future is something called we call smart maps. Mm-hmm. It's m.app. It's a play on words, but the map of the future is not a map. It's an application that delivers an information service by synthesizing and fusing multiple sources of content together around an analytical recipe that delivers a solution. I like using cooking as an example because it's really cooking and integrating multiple ingredients to make something that's different, that's unique, that tastes good, that's refreshing, that's alive, and that's really our emphasis. And like I said, we're going to try to crack that nut. I mean, our goal is to build it and see what happens, and certainly encourage a lot of partners in industry to think this way too, because I'm pretty passionate about the mapping industry and what the next generation looks like, and certainly want to make sure that we have the tools to get there. And I think we can make great advances based on where we've come from over the last 4 decades, but we've only scratched the surface of what's possible. We've seen players like Google enter the space, Microsoft, of course, Intergraph, ESRI, all these great companies, but I think there's much more ahead, and certainly we want to lead the way, and that's our goal.
Fantastic. It's great, as you have said, future maps are not just maps or map boxes, but it's much more beyond simple maps, and it's going to be very dynamic and quite intuitive. And I wish you all the best in achieving your vision. It always excites me to talk to you and understand your vision and your passion for this technology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have actually 25 industries at SAP, and this is a kind of tech cloud where you can see which industries are interested in geospatial. And the good news is actually every industry is interested in it. For example, we have sports and entertainment. I didn't know that. They are really interested in geospatial. The same for insurance industry. But one of our industries with the highest demand are, for example, utilities, oil and gas, aerospace, and so on. And of course, public sector. And public sector is always a little bit complicated. Maybe we will discuss it later because of some processes also. But if we look at the trends, what is currently going on, then we see a clear digital transformation, which means that we have three important aspects. The first aspect is the velocity, which means the speed of change of the data. And so we get a lot of data, for example, sensor data, and now as a leader, we have just a small time window to make a decision, otherwise it passes and we will lose the opportunity. Then we have the volume of data. You all know it. It's the big data, which generates petabyte of data or even more in the future, and you need the right technology to handle it. And we have the variety. This is important for business models and for practices, because a few years ago it was much easier to have one business solution for one customer at SAP, and now the business models are totally different, and we have to find a good way to support all these different businesses, even the geospatial business. There are four important building blocks that we see at SAP. I heard it already a few times today. Cloud, of course. It's very important, and for SAP, this is good because we are a European German company and we have some legal restrictions here. That is good for our cloud support, and you can use a cloud for software as a service or infrastructure as a service, however you like it. Then there's a mobile block. The mobile is also very important because everyone wants to use his mobile phone or iPad and wants to get easily access to the data, not a laptop anymore. Then you have a lot of data. It's big data again. You also need the right infrastructure behind it. And we have a network, which means all the data is connected, and we need a high-performance infrastructure in all the different countries. I think it's good now to dive in some examples, what we are doing at SAP in the public sector. The first one is one example we are doing together with the ESA. It's the ESA App Camp Challenge that we started 1 year ago, where we bringing students together or young talents, and they all have to work on geospatial data, on Earth observation data, and they have to use the technology of SAP, which is our cloud and our database and platform, and they have to create cool applications which makes the world better. There's one example. This is a wind park analytics application, but we also had a lot of application in digital farming and forest industries, and actually a lot of very good applications, and we are helping them to create new startups and create new applications and sell it. So this was the first aspect, or the first time that we are working together with the ESA. Now we will continue because our technical guys are now connected, and we want to do research together. We want to do knowledge sharing. And yeah, it's a kind of co-innovation project, which means that ESA is actually the specialist in the Earth observation data and provides the satellite data. And we are the business enablers, and we want to create new applications and also, of course, offer services for free. I will explain it later. Other examples are a lot of state offices. For example, we have one with environment data is interested in our cloud, and we want to use our cloud to make all the services available for the public. Others are with universities. For example, GI Science in Heidelberg is working on satellite images, and they want to extract information out of it and create 3D models. And then we are working with Max Planck Institute of Astronomy in the ALMA project. It's not 100% spatial, but a little bit, and it's very interesting. It's nothing where we can earn money with, but we are searching here for cosmic origins with our technology. And there are a lot of different other POCs, projects, and other things going on. Police and fire departments, for example, all over the world. We're working close together with the city of Boston, city of Cape Town, city of Shanghai. And we already heard it today. Smart cities is the keyword, and I want to dive a little bit more into this topic. So we're already working on this, and we are connected with some cities where we are using our prototype. And the idea is to bring together the citizens or tourists of the city with the things in the city and with the areas. You all know it, I guess. We have currently around 50% of the world's population lives in cities. This is expected to be 60% in the future. by 2030, and it will be more and more. So all the people are coming into the city. Currently we have around 21 megacities, which means a population of more than 10 million, and this will also get more and more in the future. And we have some other challenges like reduced climate and energy footprint. So there are a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities. And for us, this is really a big project where a lot of people at SAP are working on. Other challenges are, for example, in the infrastructure. For example, we have infrastructure bottlenecks regarding resource, efficient waste management is important. And we have a city always want to attract new talents, and there are a lot of things. We do not have the time, and I guess you all know it. Our idea is that we are again working using the SAP Cloud, and all the agencies and the departments, transportation, energy providers can connect to our cloud and embed their services, and we are generating all these basic services for free for urban transportation, for jobs and education, for well-being, for security, citizen services. It's all included, and you get an app from SAP where you can easily get access to it. It's all based, so on the upper left you see we have this app, but of course you don't always need an application on a smartphone. There are also some city administrators or people at home who want to use other applications, a web browser for example, to analyze the traffic, or city development, disaster prevention, and a lot of other scenarios are possible. And it's all based on open data, on an open API infrastructure. We have our own algorithms implemented there for predictive and also for simulations, all our technology that we're using over the last 10 years. And the goal is that the city administrator or even the citizen can understand their city poles better. So you can do resource utilization, commuting behavior, real-time operations, and you also can get or send feedback back to the city to improve the analyzing process, so to help the city to get better. And of course we are a business company, we also want to make some money, so how can we monetize this solution? With our open ecosystem, we have a kind of marketplace where all the basic services are for free, but the local companies of a city can also be part of it. They are like a seller. Then we have the local citizen which can buy something, and the local administration. They all come together in one nice application. I'm really a computer scientist, and so I have just one slide about what we are doing at SAP, because we started 3 years ago with a spatial engine in our database, and we are in memory database with a multi-core system, which means we do a lot of parallelization. All the geospatial data is stored into memory, and we have a lot of main memory, and we are working together with Intel, for example, on special CPU instructions, so that you can in milliseconds scan 400 million points, for example. It goes really fast. That's what we are doing. And you have to know that our database called HANA is not only for spatial data or for business data, it's for a lot of different engines. For example, unstructured data, graph data. This is also very interesting if you combine spatial data with graph data. Think about network tracing or topologies. It's all stored in one database. And we want to use this as our basic platform to provide in our cloud the services to our customers. That's it for me. If you want more details about spatial, here's a link. Thank you very much.